Okay, hello everyone. So we have a lot to do because next week we don't have a class, and I prepared, I guess, sources for 2 or 3 weeks, but we can do whatever we can do.
You won't be in next week.
No. Okay. So, no. So, we are going to talk about Yosef. Yosef and Leil HaSeder, and we'll see that there is a lot that connects Yosef and Leil HaSeder, which we don't really, I think it's golden, which I think I know how to push a button, but thank you. And we will see something which I think we don't think about, because we always think about why Moshe is not mentioned in the HAGGADAH, in Leil HaSeder, and we forget Yosef, but I think Yosef has obviously a lot to do with the Leil HaSeder, so let's see. So the Gemara in Pesachim in Daf Samechei Amud Bet says the following: Tanya, כל אחד ואחד נותן פסחו באורו ומפשילו לאחוריו. So the Gemara in Pesachim in Daf Samechei says that they will bring the Paschal lamb, and each one of them will basically take it in a way that they will basically take out the skin, and they will bring it with them like almost on their shoulders. Amar Rav Eilish. So Rav Eilish says, Tayot. What is Tayot? So Rashi says, Tayot derech socharim Ishmaelim hu ze. Which means, the way that they carry the Paschal lamb, the Korban Pesach, the way they carried it home, after they brought it into the Beit HaMikdash to slaughter it, to shochet it, so they took it home. The way they took it home, it was like socharim Ishmaelim. Now that sounds very familiar, right? Who are the Socharim Ishmaelim? The one who took Yosef from the bow. Now, that itself is very interesting. Why do we care? Think about it. Would you be able to sleep tonight if you would not know how exactly the Jews would carry their Paschal lamb from the Beit HaMikdash back home? I will. Believe me, I have other things to be worried about. This is not one of them. And the Gemara goes out of its way to explain to me something that it's totally unnecessary, and we will see that Reb Shlomo Kluger is asking the same question in a minute. So really, but the association is obviously with Bereshit, Perek Lamed Zayin, Pasuk Kafchet. ויעברו אנשים מדיינים סוחרים. Midianite group came along, ויעלו את יוסף מן הבור, and they basically carried Yosef from the pit, וימכרו את יוסף לישמעאלים ב-20 כסף. So they sold Yosef for 20 כסף to the Ishmaelim, and the Ishmaelim sold Yosef to Potiphar. So, says Reb Shlomo Kluger, מה שאמרו חז"ל בסוף פרק ה' דפסחים, תנא כל אחד ואחד נותן פסחו באורו ומפשיל לאחוריו, אמר רב אייליש שטיות, ופרש רש"י דרך סוחרים ישמעאלים הוא זה. והנה מעולם היה תמיהה לי, דמה כמשמע רב אייליש בזה, ולעניין מה קבעו חז"ל דבר זה בש"ס. So Reb Shlomo Kluger, as you can understand by the way, the name, he was a very smart person. And he was a very talented scholar. And he basically says, Me'olam, I don't know for how many years, he says, I was wondering about this statement. Why would the Gemara think that this is so important to describe to me what? How exactly the Jews took their Paschal lamb back home. והגוף ברייתא הזה נראה הוא למותר. דמה נפקא מינה לנו. אופן נשיאתם את הפסח לבתיהם. Also he says, if you think about the Gemara discusses things that have a nafka mina, which means have some kind of application to my life. What is the application to my life today? Zero, right? So why do I need to discuss it? So therefore he says the following. אך להבין דברי חכמים וחידותם. נראה לי דהנה בטעם שעבוד מצרים, הרבה טעמים נאמרו בזה. מהיכן נמשך שעבוד מצרים? Meaning, one of the questions that are discussed is obviously, what is the reason for the slavery in Mitzrayim? Why do we have to go through that? And he says, V'da'at kama, and it says the opinion of some rabbis is, Dehavi debaun mechirat Yosef hu ken. He says, the reason for She'abud Mitzrayim, for the slavery in Egypt, is because of what? Selling of Yosef. והנה, בכל ענייני פסח נעשה רמז על הגאולה ועל השעבוד. אך לא נעשה רמז מאיזה עניין נמשך השעבוד. Says if you look at Leil HaSeder, there are so many different things that we do in order to hint about the Geula, and the Shiabud. We eat maror for the Avdut. We eat matzah for the Geula. We eat charoset for the Avdut, right? Because of the teeth, the cement, okay? And we say לשנה הבאה בערד ישראל for the Geula. אך לא נעשה רמז מאיזה עניין השיעבוד. But there is nothing in Leil HaSeder that tried to indicate what's the reason for the slavery. And therefore, ולכך אסור רמז בזה, דאבי כאין מכירת יוסף. והנה שם כתוב וישאו עיניהם ויראו והנה ישמעאלים באים. ולכך אסור רמז בזה כמו שעשו בפסח כדרך הישמעאלים סוחרים, להזכיר עניין מכירת יוסף. And he says, this is why the Talmud talked about how the Jews took the Paschal lamb back home from the Beit HaMikdash in order to teach us the reason for slavery. Because don't forget, you could bring the Paschal lamb when? After midday. But you need to eat it when? At night. Okay, so the reason for slavery, the reason for what you are about to do is what? Connects you back to Yosef. Now, you would think that this is okay, no, one thing. To make a shiur? The answer is yes. So, you will see that there are many things that we do during Leil HaSeder in order to remind us the reason for the slavery and to mention Yosef. So, let's start. מתחיל ומברך בורא פרי האדמה ולוקח ירק ומטבל אותו בחרוסת. So you take a vegetable which has the bracha of בורא פרי האדמה, and then you dip it in חרוסת ואוכל כזית, and then you eat כזית, a measure that you need to eat. הוא וכל המסובים עמו, he and all the people who eat with him, כל אחד ואחד אין אוכל פחות מכזית. So everyone needs to eat at least כזית. says רבינו מנוח, כתב הרב, מתחיל ומברך בורא פרי האדמה ולוקח ירק. Okay, so that's what the Rambam says. ואנו, says רב מנוח, says נוהגים בכרפס. We all eat כרפס, right? Why? Why כרפס? זכר לקטונת הפסים. רגע. It's bagley. I forgot we speak in English. So we are using karpas. Why? To remind us of the ktonet hapasim, the dress that Yaakov gave to Yosef. The linen, whatever, the tunica, what is called it? The coat of many colors, right? שעשה יעקב לאבינו ליוסף, that Yaakov did to Yosef, אשר בסיבתה, that because of that, נתגלגל הדבר, things happened, וירדו אבותינו למצרים. So the first thing almost that we do on Leil HaSeder is we dip the vegetable in the charoset, which creates a lot of colors, in order to remind us about what? The colorful tunic, and this is the reason, not the colorful tunic, the animosity, the hate, the divisiveness. This is the reason of why we ended up where? In Mitzrayim. Rega. We are not done yet. The Baal HaTurim on page 2 says the following about Ktonet Pasim, this colorful tunic. He says, Pasim begimatria lepas yado. So first and foremost, we need to know, many people think, like in the show, right, that it was very colorful tunic. According to Ibn Ezra and many others, pasim means pas yado, meaning only the cufflinks, like almost like a cuff. Okay, cuff. That's what you say. Okay, good. So only here there was something like very royal, but it was a regular dress. So it was not like a really colorful coat. Just that the pas yad was something, I guess, distinguishable. Okay, that's one. ועשה לו כתונת פסים, so Yaakov did for Yosef כתונת פסים, בגימטריה, the numerical of that is משקל שני סלעים מילת. This is a measure of some kind of a value of some coins. זהו שאמרו בגמרא בפרק כמה דשבת, that's what it says in Shabbat, in tractate Shabbat, בשביל משקל שני סלעים מילת, שהוסיף יעקב ליוסף יותר משאר אחיו, because of $2 more that Yaakov spent on Yosef's coat, נתגלגל הדבר וירדו אבותינו למצרים. So who do we blame now? Yaakov. Okay, we have someone to blame. Baruch Hashem. So the thing is that because what Yaakov did, which by the way, this is such a rookie mistake. And you would think he will get it after 11 children. No, really, I'm not. You think about it, this is like a no-no for every parent. Even when we don't discriminate, there is always one child who thinks what? That he is being discriminated, okay? You can do whatever you want, but there is always one child, mostly it's the sandwich one, right? The two or your third one, that always feel that they are discriminated. So why would you do that? Why would you do that? So there is a very interesting thing. What did Yaakov think? But let's leave that alone, maybe for a different shiur. But what we see for sure is what? Now we see two associations, so two connections to Yosef. One is the way they carry the Paschal lamb back from the Beit HaMikdash to her back home. And the second one is the karpas. Okay? Now, Yerushalmi. The Jerusalem Talmud in Pesachim says the following. Minayin le'arba kosot. How do we know that you need to drink 4 cups? So, you all know the answer, right? 4 languages of Geula, we have 5, and that's why we have kos shel Eliyahu, the 5th kos that we don't drink, even though, by the way, there is a custom to do drink it. So, we don't practice that custom, but it used to be a custom in the Middle Ages. So, the thing is that we have 4 languages of Geula, right? V'otzeti, v'itzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti. I'll save you, I'll protect you, whatever. Okay. The Yerushalmi brings a different reason. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Amar, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi was an Amora in Eretz Israel in the 3rd century, says, Keneged arba kosot shel paro. It corresponds with the 4 cups of paro. 4 cups of paro, since when paro drank 4 cups, שנזכרו בראשית. If you remember, Pharaoh's dream, and, the Sarah Mashkim's dream, okay, the butler's dream was, kos paro biyadi, 1, va'eschat otam el kos paro, I will squeeze the grapes into Pharaoh's cup, va'eten et hakos al kaf paro, 3rd one, be'od shloshet, and then Yosef says to him, v'natata kos paro biyado, and you should place the cup, the wine cup, back to Pharaoh's hand. Now, ma kesher? The butler dreamt whatever he dreamt about the 3, mentioned 3 times Pharaoh's cup, and the 4th one is Yosef's interpretation, but ma kesher?
Yosef.
Exactly. The kesher is, the connection is Yosef. This is how Yosef got out of the pit. This is how, what? From the prison.
Wanted to. He wasn't successful.
Right, but later on, the butler had to admit, that what? Et chata'ai ani maskir hayom. I need to admit my sins, and I forgot someone who asked me not to forget him for 2 years, right? So the thing is that basically Yosef is coming back to the stage because of what? Of the kos. So this is why we drink 4 cups of wine on Pesach, in order to remember Yosef's interpretation for the dream and how he was what? Back on to his position. Okay. Now, skip the 2 Bereshit Shmot, go to Masechet Rosh Hashanah. So by now we have what? We have 3. We have the way they carry the Paschal lamb, B is the dipping of the karpas, and the 3rd is the 4 cups. In Masechet Rosh Hashanah, in Daf Yud Aleph, it says like that, בראש השנה יצא יוסף מבית האסורים. If you ask yourself, what's the date of Yosef's liberation from prison, was on Rosh Hashanah. How do we know? Menalan. Dichtiv, because it says, תיקעו בחודש שופר, בכסל ליום חגנו, כי חוק לישראל הוא, which means what? Blow the shofar on that specific day. And then immediately the pasuk after it says what? עדות ביהוסף שמו בצאתו על ארץ מצרים. On that day that you need to blow the shofar, which means Rosh Hashanah, that was the day that Yosef became what? A king over Mitzrayim. So, but okay, so that's Rosh Hashanah. What does it have anything to do with Pesach?
Where is that written?
The what?
Where is this age of
Oh, Tehillim. That's pasuk in Tehillim. Yeah, that's pasuk in Tehillim. עדות ביוסף שמו בצאתו עד ארץ מצרים, שפת לא יודעת תשמע. We say it every Thursday. ביום יום. היום יום חמישי. And then the Gemara says, בראש השנה בטלה עבודה מאבותינו במצרים. On Rosh Hashanah, the slavery stopped. How do we know? כתיב אחא, because here, regarding the slavery in Mitzrayim, it says, והוצאתי אתכם מתחת סבלות מצרים, and I will take you out underneath the afflictions of מצרים, וכתיב התם, and regarding Yosef, it says what? והסירותי מסבל שכמו. Do you see the word סבל? סבל means suffering. So, you see, סבלות, סבלות, which means suffering, that's סבלות, and סבל regarding Yosef means what also? סבלות is just plural of סבל. Okay, so it's suffering, not sufferings, suffering. Okay, so basically what does the Gemara try to do is to compare what? The suffering that Yosef had with the sufferings that the Jewish people had, and the same day that that suffering came to an end, which was Rosh Hashanah for Yosef, that was the time for the shofar, but also the time for the enslavement to stop, which means half a year before the Jews left Mitzrayim, they were basically what? Free of slavery, which is interesting. I don't know how many of you knew that. Now, are we sure about it? No, that's the midrash that the Gemara brings, but we can understand what? Yet another understanding of connection between Yosef and the people. But here, by the way, this example, it's much stronger than all the others. Why? Because basically it says that what? That Yosef represents what? The entire Jewish people. It happened to Yosef as an individual, and because of that it happened to the entire Jewish people, that their slavery ended on the same day that it ended for Yosef. Okay, let's continue. In Bereshit Perek Nun, Pasuk Kafei, it says, Vayashba Yosef et bnei Yisrael le'emor. So before Yosef died, he basically called his brothers and he asked them to take an oath to do what? לאמור פקוד יפקוד אלוקים אתכם ועליתם את עצמותיים מזה. Hashem shall surely what? Will think about you, will redeem you, and you will need to take my bones with you. Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch says the following: Pakod yifkod. What does it mean? Pakod yifkod. He shall surely redeem you, or will remember you, will think about you. Shtei milim ele. These two words, hayu lenekudot haor. They became like the light. ששמרו על תקוות ישראל במשך מאות בשנים לשחר הממשמש ובא. Yosef told the Jewish people, told his brothers, when he died, that they are going to be enslaved, and there is going to be a time that Hashem pakod yifkod. You remember the word pakod yifkod? What is lifkod? To remember, to care, to give a position, tafkid. Okay? What?
Appoint.
To appoint. Very good. That's the word I was looking for. To appoint someone for something, for a mission, right? Now, Yosef died. How many years went from Yosef's death until the liberation from Mitzrayim? Until the redemption? 210 years or 400 years. It depends on the calculations. But let's say at least 200 years. For 200 years, the Jewish people remember this code of pakod yifkod. How do I know that? Take a look. In Shmot Perek Gimel, Hashem says to Moshe, Lech ve'asafta et ziknei Yisrael, go and gather the elders, ve'amarta alehem, and you shall tell them, Hashem Elokei avotechem nira elai, Elokei Avraham, Yitzchak ve'Yaakov le'emor. Hashem, our God, the God of Avraham, Isaac, and Jacob, told me, pakod pakadti etchem. Same language. Now, turn to page 3. ויאמר יוסף אל אחיו, אנוכי מת ואלוהים פקוד יפקוד אתכם. אמר להם, סימן זה יהם אסור לכם. כל מי שיבוא להוציא אתכם ממצרים, אם יאמר לכם בלשון הזה, האמינו לו. וכן הוא אומר, פקוד פקדתי אתכם ותעשוי לכם במצרים. Basically, Yosef gave his brothers, and they gave it to their descendants. He basically gives them a code. If the person who comes to take you out of Mitzrayim will use that code, pakod pakadati, or pakod ifkod, believe him. If not, he's a liar.
So it's also part of the word for code.
A code is the code.
Pakod is the code. נכון מאוד. Pakod is the code, which means Yosef is not only one of the reasons for the slavery, because of what happened with him, but he is the key for what? For redemption. So this is the fifth connection now that we have between Yosef and Leil HaSeder and the Geula. Now, look at Shemot Rabbah. וחמושים עלו בני ישראל. So we know that וחמושים עלו בני ישראל מארץ מצרים. What does it mean חמושים? So one of the most famous one is only 1/5, like chomesh, only 20%, but there are other opinions. For example, שעלו מזוינים, which means they went from מצרים armed with weapons. ויקח משה את עצמות יוסף עמו. Remember, Moshe is the one to take Yosef's bones with him. So the pasuk in Mishlei, in Proverbs, says the following: Chacham levav yikach mitzvot. Someone who is wise, that his heart is wise, he is going to collect mitzvot. Why? שכל ישראל היו עסוקים בכסף וזהב. Obviously, the Jewish people were engaged and immersed themselves in what? In collecting silver and coins and all of that. ומשה היה עסוק בעצמות יוסף, שנאמר ויקח משה את עצמות יוסף עמו. And Moshe was busy doing what? Trying to find out where is Moshe's Yosef's casket is. אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה. So Hashem says to Moshe, עליך נתקיים חכם לב ייקח מצוות. The pasuk is being fulfilled with you, that you are a chacham lev, you are a wise person in your heart, and you are picking mitzvot. יוסף היה חייב לאביו לקוברו, מפני שהוא בנו, ואתה לא בנו ולא בן בנו, ולא היית חייב לעסוק בו, וקברת אותו. So Hashem says to Moshe, you really did something incredible. Yosef had to bury his father. Why? Because he took an oath. Not only that his son is also Nishbalo. He took an oath to bury him. But you, Moshe, you owe nothing to Yosef. Right? You are not his son, you are not his descendant, and I will add something. Your great-great-grandfather, Levi, really didn't like Yosef. He and Shimon were the ones who conspired to kill him. So basically Moshe had zero quote-unquote obligation from a family perspective to bury Yosef, to take Yosef. וקברת אותו, but you did. You took his bones. By the way, he didn't bury him, he just took his bones. The Jewish people buried him later on, because Moshe didn't go into the land of Israel. וכן אני, שאיני חייב לבריאה, אני מטפל בך, ואקבורך, שנאמר, ויקבור אותו בגיא. So Hashem says to Moshe, because of what you did to Yosef, I'm going to do the same for you. Who buried Moshe? Hashem. Okay? So it's interesting. Yosef prepared the slavery and prepared the redemption. Moshe was one to bring the redemption and to take Yosef and to bring him to burial place. And then who buries Moshe? Hashem himself. ומניין היה יודע משה היכן היה יוסף קבור? How exactly Moshe knew where Yosef is buried? יש אומרים סרח בת אשר הראה אותו. You remember Serach Bat Asher? She is always around. She never dies, she's never born, she's everywhere and she's nowhere. She's like a ghost. this Serach Bat Asher. One time when I'll have some time, I might do a research on her and try to understand what's going on with this girl. But it's a very interesting thing. She was born Bachomot. She was born like when they entered the Mitzrayim, but she was basically, her mom was pregnant while she was in Israel. It's a very interesting idea with Serach Bat Asher. But she showed him where he is buried, and he was in the Nile. Ma'asa Moshe. So Moshe called Yosef and says, it's time you come up. ויש אומרים, בתוך הפלטרין היה קבור, כדרך שהמלכים קבורים. But some people say, no, he was buried in a cave like all the other Egyptian kings. ועשו מצרים כלבים של זהב בכשפים, שאם יבוא אדם לשם יהיו נובחים וקולן הולך בכל ארץ מצרים מהלך מם יום. The Egyptians created those dogs that will bark. It sounds like Indiana Jones, right? That they will bark if someone will try to take Yosef's coffin from that cave, and everyone would hear it.
Is Platarin a cave or a palace?
The what?
Is
Platarin?
a cave or
palaces. Yeah, Platarin is a palace, but it's like more of the entry for a palace. So then he says, ושתקן משה, and Moshe silenced them, שנאמר, לכל בני ישראל לא יחרץ כלב לשונו. התחיל משה צווח, יוסף, יוסף, הגיעה השעה שאמרת, יפקוד אלוקים אתכם. So Moshe is screaming, Yosef, wake up, it's time. It's time for the fulfillment of your prophecy of pakod ifkod, and I am the guy. I'm the person. You need to wake up, I need to take you. מיד נתנדנד הארון. So the Aaron started shaking. ונטלו משה, and Moshe took it, שנאמר, ויקח משה את עצמות יוסף. So Moshe took his bones, והיו עצמותיו של יוסף מחזרין עמהם במדבר 40 שנה. So he took his bones for 40 years. They were wandering around in the desert. אמר לו הקדוש ברוך הוא, אתה אמרת לאחיך, אנוכי אכלכל אתכם, חייך אתה נפטר, ויהיו עצמותיך מחזרין עמהם 40 שנה. Now, there is something very interesting. You remember when Yosef revealed himself to his brothers, he says to them what? Don't worry, Hashem sent me here for a reason. I am going to sustain you for all those years. And Hashem says to him, you are a bit arrogant, saying that you're going to sustain them. So now, for 40 years, you are going to what? Go around with them. Now, but there is something good, which is, שנאמר, ויהי אנשים אשר היו טמאים לנפש אדם, ואין אדם אלא יוסף, שנאמר, אוהל שיכן באדם. וימאס באוהל יוסף, בזכות עצמותיך הם עושים פסח קטן. This is an incredible midrash, and I'm doing zero justice to the midrash because I'm doing that fast. That midrash itself can go for an hour, but I will just highlight a few things. They carry these bones. Because they carry these bones, they were impure, because they were in touch with the dead body. You remember the story of Pesach Sheni? What is the entire idea of Pesach Sheni?
You get a second chance.
That you have a second chance. There is no any other mitzvah. If someone will come to me and says, Rabbi, I forgot to put tefillin on Sunday, should I put them twice on Tuesday? I will look at him and say, no. I mean, you put them only once. There is no second. I didn't fast on Yom Kippur. Should I fast on Tu B'Shvat? It doesn't work like that. The only mitzvah that you can do it again is Pesach. And why? Because that's the covenant. That's the connection to the Jewish people. That's the connection to the history. And this connection to our destiny. And it's all because of whom? Of Yosef. Which is unbelievable. That's the seventh connection, I think, that we came up with. The idea of what? Of Yosef and with all the animosity that the people couldn't stand him, that his siblings couldn't stand him, for 40 years, now he's dead, I understand, but for 40 years, he's hanging around all the brothers, all the sisters, and he's allowing them to do what? To have a second chance. That's Yosef's story, in a way. He himself got a second chance, to rectify what he did, and also to rise to a position, and he gives his brothers a second chance. Look at the story with Binyamin. Binyamin was basically a test for what? For a second chance. Would you be willing to what? To sacrifice yourself for your sibling. Not to sacrifice your sibling for yourself.
That was Yehuda's second chance.
And that was Yehuda's second chest as well. Exactly. So, now,
This is only going to go into the pshat that says that Pesach changes because of Hatzmot Yosef.
Uh-huh.
Also pshat that says it's because of Nadav and Avihu, that those who have to take out the...
right, but the most, I think, prevalent opinion is that that's not Yosef, yeah. כי השבע השביע את בני ישראל, because he השבע השביע twice, meaning he made them take an oath twice. למה שני פעמים? Why twice? But after the first time we got it. אלא הוא נשבע להם שאין בליבו עליהם, והם נשבעים לו שאין בליבם עליו. He took an oath that he is not upset with them anymore. I didn't say he forgave them. In my opinion, and I think I said it in one of the drashot, I don't think Yosef ever forgave his siblings. He was not angry anymore. He made sense in his own mind for this entire thing. He was sent here, he had to sustain them, he had to prepare Egypt for them. I don't think he could forgive them. And why? Because he was not phony. You can't forgive for something like that. You can go on. You can have nice relationships, you put them in Goshen and you lived in Cairo, so you don't see them really only for Thanksgiving, right? So the idea is that basically I'm not sure Yosef was able to forgive them. By the way, this is my theory, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but when Yaakov dies, he calls Yosef to come. What? You didn't see your father for 22 years, you were so connected, and why don't you spend some time with family? Answer. So maybe Yosef just felt very committed to his job and everything, but also I think is that he didn't want to have too many conversations with his father because the question will come up, which is, how did you end up here? And Yosef will probably tell his father, how did you end up losing hope and not come to what? To search for me, to find me. So obviously there is a lot of how do we know? So first, when he was sick, Yosef had to be told that your father is sick, which means he didn't see him. A. B. When Yaakov saw Yosef's children, he says, who are they? Now, leave alone, there is a midrash that says, that he saw that one of them has an idol worshiper, and whatever. But the pshat is, he had no clue about his grandchildren from Yosef's part. So I think that there was not too much of a connection.
Okay, therefore also the brothers did not do tshuva because they also made up a story.
At the end.
At the end, they told Yosef that they spoke to the father.
Right. By the way, I don't think Yosef ever believed that story, because the only way that Yaakov would say something like that is that if Yosef will tell him what happened. Right. Now, because Yosef knew that he never said it, right, and he assumed that the brothers probably didn't confess their sin before Yaakov's death, so therefore he knew that they made it up.
And that's what we suffered for Israel, Eskara, because we did not do tshuva.
Exactly. So the entire HaSeder now is about what? It's to bring the brothers and the sisters now, because we need to be politically correct, obviously, but brothers and sisters together. Be'emet. This is the entire idea of HaSeder, and now I think the lesson, especially after October 7th, is so powerful. It's not about, the size of the maror is very important. The size of the matzah is very important. All the mitzvot and the halachot are very important. But the idea behind Geulat Mitzrayim is the ability to what? To come together. And you have a variety of people around your table. You have a chacham, you have a rasha, you have a tipesh. I didn't say that stam. According to the Yerushalmi, there is chacham, tipesh, tam v'sheino יודע לשאול. Four. The rasha is out.
No rasha.
No, there is a tipesh. Now, you know what? Okay, you know what? I'll give you 2 minutes. I thought about I can make a Shabbat HaGadol drush out of it, but I'll give you one thing.
Yerushalmi uses the word tipesh.
יש tipesh. ויש גם עוד מחילתא. So there are 3 sources for it. 3 sources for the 4 children. Now, think about it. There is always, when you look at the list of the 4, there is someone who is odd. If you take the chacham, okay, chacham is wise, right? Tam is simple. I mean, intellectually is not that bright. What is sheino יודע לשאול? but what about his cognitive abilities?
They're okay. He's too young.
Can be good, can be maybe developed, right?
You know,
So it's all about cognitive abilities, right? חכם, תם, ושאינו יודע לשאול. The Rasha is לא קשור. Rasha is evil. It is not okay. Now, if you take Rasha, Tam, and you put them together, that sounds good. Rasha is the evil guy. The Tam is Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. Right? Chacham does not mean tzaddik. Chacham means what? Intellectually stimulated, smart. That's it. So basically, the way you try to create, let's say, a common denominator, there is a bit of a problem. Therefore, Yerushalmi, if I'm not mistaken, or the Mechilta, one of them, I saw that many years ago, put Chacham versus Tipesh. Makes sense. Chacham is smart, Tipesh is not that smart. Okay? And then the third guy is the Tam. So we can have different combinations. Now, there is something very interesting too. When you take Chacham, Rasha, and Tam, the Tam you can split to two. The Tmimut shebo, not the naivete, his Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha, his piety is against the Rasha. But his stupidity is against the Chacham. So, now I'm not telling you now to try to admire the Rasha. But I will tell you, listen to what he has to say. This is very interesting. He is involved. And not only that, according to the Yerushalmi, when he brings the Rasha, he says, Ma TORAH ze she'atem matrichim aleinu bechol shana v'shana. Which means every year, he comes to the SEDER. Every year he comes to the Beit HaMikdash and he sees the thing. He's not outside, he comes. But every year he says to them, guys, what are you doing? Every year you drive me crazy with all these things that I need to do, with all this burden. What's the reason for that? Give me a reason. Which means, at least, he does not show apathy. He's not an apathetic, whatever, guy. Okay? He is someone who is involved. They just want to know. So, to some extent, the problem is not so much with him. It might be with us. We maybe don't really give a reason. In my opinion, the guy who doesn't know how to ask, he is probably the same level with the Rasha. Because to show zero interest, that's not good. So, whatever. We're not giving a shiur now about the four banim. Okay, move on. It was your fault.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, so he took an oath that he's not upset with them, and they took an oath that they are obviously not upset with him. ועליתם את עצמותיי מזה איתכם. אמר רבי לוי, משל למה הדבר דומה? So there is a parable for what? לאדם שהכניס עינו במרתף, נכנסו הגנבים ונטלו החביות והלכו להם ושתו אותו. So it's a parable for what? For a person who put all these wine barrels into a little martef, and thieves took the barrels out and they drank the wine. בא בעל היין ומצא אותם שגנבו החבית. So the owner of the winery came along and he saw that they stole the barrel. אמר להם, שתיתם היין, החזירו החבית למקומו. You drank the wine? Okay, but you know what? Put the barrel in its place, please. Okay, don't leave it like that. What's the message? כך משכם גנבו אחיו של יוסף אותו ומכרו אותו. So they took Yosef from Shechem and they sold him. וכשבא להיפטר מן העולם, and when he was about to die, השביע אותם, he asked them to take an oath to do what? בבקשה מכם חי, משכם גנבתם אותי, חי, החזירו את עצמותיי לשכם. You took me from Shechem, bring me back to Shechem. Now, I will tell you something about Shechem. We don't like Shechem. It's a bad city. But there was something else that happened in Shechem before Yosef. The story of Dinah. The story of Dinah. Now, in the story of Dinah, there is also someone who is taken by force, Dinah. But there, the brothers showed what? Tremendous unity. I mean, we can criticize what they did because they lied, and Yaakov definitely didn't like it. But the idea is that they showed that they are willing to risk themselves in order to what? To get Dinah out, which was an incredible thing. Unity among the brothers and willing to do things for someone else. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, Shechem was terrible. Yosef was sold. What else happened in Shechem in Tanakh?
Well, Yaakov bought him. He paid for the land outside of Shem.
That's true, but later in Tanakh. I'll give you a hint. To give you a hint?
Yeah.
Okay. Generation after Shlomo. The kingdom split in Shechem between Yerovam and Rechavam. That was Shechem. Now, it's interesting because what is Shechem, which is almost like Shechem? A shoulder. What does the shoulder do? They support and they connect. The idea of Shechem, and the Zohar has something interesting about it, is the idea of connection. However, you need to go through some kind of a process in order to re-give this meaning to Shechem, which is by itself is a very interesting thing. Okay, so again, what do we have with Yosef and Leil HaSeder is the idea of what? Of almost full circle, of bringing everyone together.
This is Nachala. Yosef was going to next to Nachala.
נכון מאוד, that's for שכם אחד על אחיך. אשר לקחתי בחרבי ובקשתי. What is חרבי ובקשתי? So the Targum says בצלותי ובבעותי, which means with my prayers and my beseeching God. But the fact is בצלותי ובבעותי, which means with my sword and my weapons. Okay. So the Ramban says, and this is beautiful, the last source on page 3. What does it mean when when Moshe says to when Yaakov says to Yosef, אני נתתי לך שכם אחד על אחיך, I'm giving you שכם אחד על אחיך. Ramban says, הוא חלק הבכורה. Yosef was considered as what? As a בכור, so he got a double portion. ליותך בו יתר על אחיך, so you will have a double portion all over your siblings. מיום שלקחתי אותו מיד האמורי בחרבי ובקשתי. Now we are going to do something interesting that like that. We're not going to read all the Hebrew because there is a lot of Hebrew here. So what I'm going to do is Yosef. Everyone can mostly you can. Okay, good. Yosef is. I don't know how you. Bechor, firstborn. Is he?
No.
Yes.
To Rachel.
To Rachel, and also, if the plan was as it was in the original, Rachel will be the first wife, and Yosef will be the first son. Now, and he got a nachala of a bechor, right? Okay. Yosef, who else is considered as a bechor? Now, leave him. He's a tragedy. I gave a class about him once. Bni bechori Israel. No, Yudah is not a bechor. Israel is a bechor. Bni bechori Israel. So we have Yosef is a bechor, and also Am Israel is a bechor. I don't like to call it Jewish nation. It's Yehudi. We are Israelim. Not only Israeli. Am Israel is the highest level. Okay? So we have Bechor, Bechor. Okay. Then we know that when Yosef heard that, when Yosef revealed himself to, what I'm saying is the Pachad Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner. When Yosef heard that Yaakov is coming to Mitzrayim, what did he do? You remember? Vaye'esor Yosef merkavto. Yosef basically got his chariot, okay, ready. letters are what? Resh, Kaf, Bet, Rechev, right? Switch it to Bechor. Okay? Now, 1 second. So we have Merkava, the chariot, also has the idea of what? Of Bechor. Who else got his chariot ready for something bad? Paro. When Paro chased the Jewish people, Am Yisrael, to Yamsuf, it says, Vaye'esor Paro Merkavto. Now, Paro will need to do it by himself. He's the king. The idea is that he was so hateful that he did it by himself. He didn't want to wait for his servants. Okay? Now, one more.
It's the same motif in a different order.
Okay. So what's going on here? Everything is in the Bechor. Bechor, Merkava, and Bracha. So, where does the Bracha come from? 1 second. We'll get there. So, the idea that Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner wants to claim in 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, okay? He basically says the following. He says, the Zohar states that the Avot, hem ha-merkava, that our ancestors, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they are basically the wheels of the Merkava, of the chariot, the divine chariot. What does that mean? Let's bring it down to earth. That's what we want, because we want to understand it. Hashem reveals himself to us as a king here. We all know, Lehavdil elef alfei avdalot, King Charles, right? He's in a Rolls Royce, whatever he is, or he's in a chariot, okay? But someone needs to what? To carry him. Who are the ones to carry him? Is Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But there are only what? 3 wheels. You need to have the 4th one. We are the 4th one. We, Am Yisrael, through us, we are the ones to bring God to this world. Okay? So we have a Merkava. We are the wheels of the Merkava. However, when you travel, even if you travel business class, you feel a shmate. After you traveled a lot, after you travel for this journey from the Jewish people, you travel a lot and you feel a shmate. One of the first blessings that Hashem gave to Avraham after Lech Lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladetcha u'mibeit avicha el haaretz asher are'eka, right? You shall go and wander around and you go on your journey. What's the bracha that Hashem gives to Avraham? Va'avarcha mevarachecha u'mekalelcha ha'or. And part of this blessing is what? That he will not be affected by tiltul haderech. He will not be affected by what? By wandering around. He will stay fresh. Okay? So the idea is, the Merkava can cause you what? To be tired from the way, and you get a bracha. Now, also, I don't know if you ask yourself ever, why bracha is a blessing? Because that's the translation, I understand. But what does it mean? Ten li bracha. I mean, Yaakov and Esav are fighting for a bracha. How does it work? Here in Israel, we have Birkat Kohanim every day. Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of Kohanim. How does it work? You give bracha to your children. How does it work?
You're the vehicle. You're the shaliach for the bracha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
But how does it work? You say something, and how it's connected?
Well, by saying it, it has an impact.
Okay, I will just add a little bit. Someone needs to hear it. Someone needs to be ready for it, right? You need to connect. Now, that's the beauty of Hebrew. Berech. What is a berech? Knee. We all will not say it. Knees are the part of the body that connects what? The legs, that allow you to what? To do the lech lecha, to walk. So the idea is, we all know if you have a bad knee, it's a problem. So the idea is the bracha comes from the word berech. It's basically to connect. You said to listen. You need to bow down a little bit. That's what we do in the Siyat Kapayim, Tfilat Kohanim. We do that a little bit. When you give a bracha to your children, they lower their head a bit. They don't stand straight. So the thing is what? That in order for the Merkava to work, you need to definitely have what? A berech. You need to have a bracha. And if you have both, you get what? To become a Bechor. Yes?
Is it also related to Bricha? Like you also
That's with Chet.
See, a little Hebrew's a danger. Rabbi Hirsch would probably discuss.
Probably, somehow. That's true, but this is a...
So fun.
But what was the idea behind it?
Oh, the idea was to be a receptacle, not just a connector, but to be able to receive.
Okay.
To hold on to the bracha.
Okay.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Okay.
Now, one more, but one more thing. There is in Hebrew, and this is the beauty again in Hebrew. How do you call that thing? Now it's show and tell. Okay? Now, I was never good in painting. So I will try. Now it's a minute of Hebrew. Okay, how do you do that? I think you do that. Okay. במילא אי אפשר לצייר כאן שום דבר. Okay, what is that? A tree.
Oh, that's a tree.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a tree. Okay?
Rob says so, that's a tree.
That's a tree. Here are the roots. Okay? This is a tree. Okay? If I take, this is a branch, right? This is the ground. If I take a branch from here and I plant it here in order to have another tree, how does it called in Hebrew, in English? Transplant. How do you call it in Hebrew? It's beautiful. It's also in the Mishnayot already. It's called... Oh, now it works.
Now it works, you write the word.
Havracha.
Really?
Havracha. That's a Lashon Mishnah. That's in the Mishnah. It's not a made-up word like in the 20th century. It's in the Mishnah already.
Like a graph. You mean like a graph?
Exactly, and it comes from the word berech. Like planting something that will continue the original tree. By the way, there are halachic nafkaminas. If, for example, this tree is already past the Dinei Orla, it's after the 4th year, this one is also already, yes, which is very interesting. So that's also, you need to know the times and all of that. But this is the idea of havracha. So everything around these letters, it's about continuation and carrying someone else with you. So if that's true, as I said, I really do zero justice to all of that. But just because of time, I will just say that part of the idea of Leil HaSeder is not only just to remember the slavery and the redemption, but to understand the reason. When we understand the reason for something, we hopefully will not repeat it. So when I probably should erase this thing. People will have no idea what did I say here. So the idea is how to be a Bechor, and this is also a lesson for Yosef. How to be a Bechor and to understand not only the privileges, but also the responsibilities. We are Bnei Bechori Israel. We have tremendous responsibility to ourselves, but also to educate this crazy Michigan world that we live in. And we have tremendous amount of work to do. So I think that especially in Bezrat Hashem in 2 weeks, when we sit around Leil HaSeder, I think part of this idea of Yosef and the idea of brotherhood and the idea of unity, and to learn how to, the first mission that Yaakov sent Yosef was the Relech Re'eh et Shlom Achecha. What does it mean, Shlom Achecha? To see if you can find peace within your brothers. Yosef didn't even have a chance. The minute they saw him from afar, they wanted to kill him. So he lost it. But that was the idea. And this is obviously something that we need to ask ourselves. Okay, that's for today.